Hey, it's TSLA, and this is episode 117 of the Orange Pill Investor. And today I want to talk about becoming work optional. I've been trading covered calls and cash secured puts for the last 4 years. May was actually my 4-year anniversary. And this post today got a little bit of traction. So I might as well do a little bit of a video to demonstrate how I trade, not financial advice, do your own research, all that crap. But this is the strategy that I've used to basically exceed my 9-to-5 income, and that is with about with an account that has grown to about 300,000. So the strategy, trying to get at least 1% of that a week, which would be 1% of 300,000 would be $3,000. So $3,000 a week, 52 weeks a year would add up to about 150,000. So without telling you exactly how much I make at my real job, my quote unquote real job, that has finally exceeded, kind of definitively exceeded my regular income. So people seemed to be interested, were asking me, how does it work? And then basically in like just the simplest terms possible, just, give me the cookbook for this. So can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I do. And then you can either like it or not. Maybe you'll figure something out better, and that would be great too. So I started out selling the wheel, and the wheel has two parts to it. So let me just go out to something that's a little bit cheaper and more affordable. But for Mara, let's just say, if I was going to run the wheel today, and actually this fits into some small accounts. When I first started trading, I had a kind of a financial guru that I worked with, and he basically told me at that point he wouldn't work with me anymore, or anyone who wasn't an options trader. And he had little, not really classes or whatever, but he would have sessions on Clubhouse and whatnot, and we would discuss strategies. But I was kind of scared, so I put like $5,000 into Robinhood, and when I kind of saw how easy selling puts and calls was, I immediately went and got the cash out of my my retirement. And I can't remember if it's like a COVID loan at that point or whatever. Anyway, I went ahead and got a hold of my money and started trading it on my own. I added like another $30,000, and then I think I added like 75 total out of my own. Basically just pulled it out of retirement and started trading it myself. So yeah, so 100 cash secured put, is the first step of the wheel. So what I would probably do if I was starting a wheel strategy right from the beginning is I would just sell an at the money put. There's only 4 days to expiration, so this would probably be a little bit bigger premium actually, which is sick to think about. It's on Friday, see theta, $17 is draining out of this option value every day. So maybe on Friday this would have been 140. And so the way that I figure what's my ROI is you're going to have to put up $2,050 of collateral to sell the 20.5 strike. So whatever strike you pick, that's how much that's my buying power. That's how much you're going to have to come up with, $2,050 in collateral. And this is my small account, so some of the stuff's not going to go through. But it's cash secured put, abbreviated CSP for short, and they're going to pay me $120, which if you're putting up $2,000 in collateral, the easy math for me is that 1% of that would be 20 bucks, and this is 6 times that. So this would be 6%, and this is only for 4 days. Probably would have been 7% last Friday. And so I would just sell at the money. Now, it's completely viable to sell any strike under here. If you're like, you know what, Mara's up 18% right now, I don't want to buy the top. I don't want to pay more than $19 for 100 shares of Mara. Okay, then you sell the 19 strike. It's very similar to just setting a limit purchase order of 19. However, if you do this and another person sets a limit order for 19, and Mara never goes to 19 again, if Mara goes to 21 and then 22 and then 25, and then a year from now it's 50 or whatever, the other guy's still going to be sitting there with his $19 limit order, not doing anything, but $1,900 of his money will be locked up, doing absolutely nothing. He doesn't own anything. I guess some of the exchanges will give you interest on uninvested money, but other than that, he isn't getting jack. And so, but for you could sell this 19 strike this week, and you would collect 59 bucks, which is 3% of the collateral. And so you could get 3% returns this week, and then even if the price stays at 20, sure, you're not going to get you're not going to be the owner of 100 shares, but you're still going to have made 3% this week. 3% a week for 52 weeks is 150% for the year. That's additive. Now that number actually goes up quite a bit if your account is large enough that you're able to take this money and reinvest it, and then if that's enough money for you to do another cash secured put or covered call, then it's not just 3% plus 3% every week. It's actually grows like compound interest. And I'll go over the calculations. I got a whole spreadsheet for that. So this would be step one. So the easy mode, step one, you just sell a cash secured put anywhere under the price. If you only want to collect 25 bucks in premium and you're like, you know what, if the price goes back down to 17 where it was 2 weeks ago, then you just pick this one. And then you just keep doing it every week. You sell a put, and then every week you collect the premium and you close it at some point before expiration, or you can just let it expire worthless. Whatever, either way works. And then you continue to do that until the price at expiration on Friday dips below your price. And this little chance of profit, 64%, that's kind of a guesstimate. So about half the time this will happen. About 64% of the time they're saying this won't happen. But, about half the time you may get assigned. So the price may drop to 20, may drop to 19, and may drop to 15. Just like if you own stock and the price can drop. But that's step one. And you continue to do it. You continue to book profits every week until you get assigned. When you get assigned, now you're the proud owner of 100 shares of Mara. And I kind of skipped this step and I just went ahead and bought 200 shares of Mara. But once that happens, you just flip over to the sell call side. And so my cost basis, as far as Robinhood is concerned, is like 1957. Let me just look and see. Yeah, 1957. And so to avoid taking any losses, you're going to want to sell a covered call above your cost basis. Now, if you got paid $1 and you picked the 20.5 strike and the price goes below that, your cost basis, as far as Robinhood is concerned, would be 20.5. But if you got paid $1 for it, you can subtract that from your cost basis, and your true cost basis is really 19.5. So let's just assume that took place. I sold this 19.5 and this 20 last week when the price of Mara was like 17. So I will actually not realize any profits over 19.5 on this one and none over 20 on this one, which is totally fine. That's how it works. It's basically the opposite of the cash secured put side. And so, but if I was doing this today and I had gotten assigned at 20.5 and I got paid $1 and my cost basis is 19.5, then I would sell a covered call for next week anywhere above 21. And even if the price goes above 21 and those shares get called away, your cost basis is 19, so you're going to make $150 from your cost basis to 21 plus whatever they pay you, so another $100 here. So you'd probably make like $250 in 2 weeks on $2,000 collateral. That's like 10%. So that works. I mean, these kind of returns are not guaranteed, but Bitcoin's fairly volatile, so these mining stocks are volatile, and that is a good thing for options prices. But generally what I would do is I would not sell this at the money, because if the price pumps from 20 to 25, you're only going to be able to collect that 30 cents between 20.70 and the strike price you picked. So I generally, like what I did down here, the price was like 17.5 and I built like $2 of callaway value in, and I went to the 19.5 and the 20. So I'd probably do something like that here. I'd just add like $2. 10% of 20 is 2. So I would probably go up to the 23 strike. So 22, 23 strike or whatever. Collect $50, which is 2.5% ROI for this week, plus 10% callaway value. Meaning that if the price does go to 23 this week, you would collect all of that upside. So your account value would go up $200, plus you collected the 50, and the only thing that would be, unfortunate, I suppose, is the price went to 25, you would only collect the profits to 21, or excuse me, to 22, or 22.50, whatever you picked. And then, that other 300 profit would go to the other guy, which is fine. You make a couple $100, he makes a couple $100. And that's the other thing that I love about covered calls, is that a lot of trading is a zero-sum game. So one guy wins and the other guy loses. But if your cost basis is 20, you get paid 22 plus $50, you made $250. And if the price goes to 25, he makes $250 as well. So I love the trade because both parties can profit. And that's kind of a rare thing. So to me, it's kind of like the kumbaya trade, really, selling covered calls. So yeah, if my cost basis was 19.5 or 20 or whatever, I'd just come in here, boom, sell this one or this one, and collect 2.5% ROI here, like 3-4% here. However greedy you want to be with the premium, or how much, how greedy you want to be with the callaway value. It's a trade-off, but you can really do it. If you choose a strike above your cost basis, it's literally impossible to lose money with this trade. Well, it's impossible to lose money that you wouldn't lose if you were just holding the stock and the price went down. Because obviously, if you own 100 shares of something and the price goes to 0, well, then you lost all your money. And this strategy is almost no different than that. The difference is the price of your shares would go to 0, just like the guy who bought them and it went to 0. But at least you've got the $50. If you sell the 23 strike for 50, your shares go to 0, but you still got $50 in your account. So there's a little bit of downside protection. The upside risk is that you might not, it's not that you're going to lose money, but you might not make as much money as someone who bought at $2,000 and then the price goes to 30, and they make $1,000. And you sold the 22 strike and you only made 250. The other guy made 1,000. That's the trade-off. So there's no perfect strategy. There's just trade-offs. What do you want to, for me, the trade-off is worth it because you have a higher chance of success. and you have a higher chance of success because you're constantly reducing your cost basis. Every time you sell a put, reduce your cost basis. Every time you sell a covered call, you subtract that from your cost basis. I look at it like getting a little discount on my stock every week. If you could buy a stock every week and get it for 2 or 3% cheaper than everyone else buying stock, like, how could you not do well? I think to me, that just makes mathematical sense. And so, yeah, that's what that would be the wheel. And then, so you just sell the 22, the 23, the 21, whatever the hell you want to sell until the price of MARA goes above. And if the price goes above up to 25 and these shares get called away, then you have no shares left. So now you're selling the 25 put, whatever's below at the money, because the share price would be 25 now. So you'd come here to just under the line, and you could sell an at the money put at 25 now and collect however much, option premium is available then. And this is what I did. This is what I've been doing for about 2 of the 4 years. So for the other 2 years, I got a little too smart for my own good, and instead of actually buying 100 shares and paying $2 for it, $2,000 for it, I would go out here. I probably shouldn't even show you how to do this because this is what got me wrecked. So I had turned about 70 grand into about 210, 240 in about a year and a half. And then I stopped doing the wheel and I started buying these leaps. And so if you go down here and get like a $10 leaps, instead of paying $2,000, now you only have to pay $1,200. But then you start using this as your collateral. And so I'm like, oh wow, I can do so much more. This is almost like trading on margin. Well, when the Fed raised rates and the bottom dropped out of the whole friggin' market, the prices of these leaps collapsed faster than the prices of the shares. If I had just owned shares, I would have been fine. I would have probably lost half my money instead of all of my profits. So I turned 70 into 210, 240, changed my strategy, got wrecked by the Fed, and bad decision making on my part because I changed my strategy, and I gave that all back. So I ended up with like 70 again. So 2 years later, I'm back where I started. I decided to pull my head out of my ass and go back to the wheel and selling puts, selling covered calls, and I am back in action. And it's not that selling these poor man's covered calls, which is what it's called when you do this, when you buy deep in the money leaps like this and then sell covered calls against it. It's called a poor man's covered call because it's cheaper. So if you don't have enough money to do the regular covered call strategy, sometimes people out of desperation or whatever reason will do this. But yeah, so I was eggheading it too much and got myself wrecked and learned a valuable lesson. Hopefully losing that money, losing a couple $100,000 in 6 months-ish will, save me millions over the next 10, 20, 30 years. This is fun for me, so I plan to do this for the rest of my life. But that's MARA. So, something on the other end of the spectrum is something like MicroStrategy. Now, my irresponsibly long brothers and sisters that are just rabid MicroStrategy owners are probably just like, are you out of your effing mind? There's no way I would sell covered calls against this. And I have to say that they may have a good point, because I owned MicroStrategy at like $500 or $600 a share, and then it ripped up to, it doubled, and then it tripled, and basically within just a couple of weeks. And in order to not lose those shares, I ended up having to pay like 35 grand when I had like I think I had like the 14, let's say I just had the 1400 strike and the price went to 1750 by the next week. So the difference between 1400 and 1750 is $350 times 100, which is 35 grand. So I had to pay 35 grand because I limited my upside, and MicroStrategy basically just ripped my face off. Now, I turned around and just sold another covered call for the next week, and I got paid like 10 grand for that one, and that one worked out fine. So, if I include the roll, maybe it only cost me 25. But I didn't have to pay that 25. I could have just let my 100 shares get called away at 1,400. I did not have to subject myself to that loss. That was a choice on my part. So you're always free to just let your shares get called away, and that's why this is a defined risk trade. But let's just say I came into the market, I bought 100 shares. Well, I'm sorry, we're doing the wheel. So if I was just coming in here and I had $125,000 or $130,000 to spend, I could just sell this put right here. Boom. You're gonna have to put up $128,750. You're gonna get paid $6 grand, and so 1% of this would be 12. So you get paid about 5% ROI for the week. And if the price of MicroStrategy drops below 12.89, it was like 1,000 earlier this week or last week. If it drops below the 12.8750. Then you're the proud owner of 100 shares of MicroStrategy at this strike price. And again, if you want a deeper discount, if you're like, you know what, the price is too steep, I don't want to pay more than $12.50 for MicroStrategy. Okay, well, you can put up 125 grand collateral for this and get paid about 3.5% ROI for the week, as you prefer. I'm not really going over the 45-day to expiration strategy, but I will probably go ahead and cover it. I don't really use it too much anymore. Reason being is weekly, you're going to get more per week. Just doing it every week. I'm going to collect this premium, and I'm going to collect it again next week, and I'm going to collect it again next week. But if you go out 2 weeks, that 6,400 does not turn into 13,000. It only went up from 6,400 to 9,700. So you get paid 6,500 for the first week, but you're only going to get 3 grand for the next week. So there's diminishing returns, and it's generally going to get cut in half again and again and again. So let's see if the 3 grand gets cut to 1,500 this time. It was 9,700. Actually, 97, that's 3 grand again for 3 weeks. So 126 to May. Yeah, okay, so now it dropped down to 2. So diminishing returns every week. So that's why I stick to 1 week expiration dates. But I'll cover the 45-day one pretty quickly. And actually, maybe I'll do it for MicroStrategy because this one can rip on you so much that it's made me a little bit gun shy, to be honest. For MicroStrategy, I don't hesitate to try to collect 3%, 5% for the week sometimes. But when I got wrecked for 35 grand, I was like, okay, let me bake like 20% call away value in here, just to be a little safer than sorry. But that's step one. So let's say the price dropped below your 128,750, and now you're the proud owner of 100 shares at that strike price. Well, now, as long as you sell any covered call above this, then you can't really lose money. Even if the price goes up to 2,000, you just let your shares get called away. So if I was going to bake 20% call away, that's 260 probably. So if I go up to 1,550, can collect $300, which is only about, let's see, 1% would be 15. We're missing about a day of premium here. So, and plus, who knows what's happened to the price after hours, but that's less than 1%. To get 15, it would be way down here at 1,400. So, how much did this go up after hours? Yeah, it did go up a little bit after hours. So unfortunately, these aren't quite accurate after hours, But that's what I would basically do for MicroStrategy. I'm a little bit gun shy from getting, wrecked, so I would probably go way up here. But anywhere above your cost basis is a quote-unquote safe strike. But if you wanted to bake 20% call away value in, you could go all the way up to like 1550. When I sold my covered calls on Friday, I believe I collected about 1%, and I was able to do that at around the 1400 strike. So we've lost a whole day of premium off of this, so these aren't quite accurate. But that's what I would do. Else, if I wanted to give myself a little bit more time to be right, the official kind of tasty trade strategy, which is one of the places I learned to sell options, they generally go out to about the 84% chance of profit here, which is going to be around a 0.3 delta. So probably right here. They would sell the 1700 strike, 45 days to expiration, 46 is close enough. And it looks like you can collect 17. That's almost 4%. And then call away value, but it's, it's 45 days. Call away value is like 400 and something. Whatever the hell math that works out to. 10% would be 170. So, I don't know, 20 something percent call away value, almost 30. Anyway, and then if the price rips to $2,000 next week, you're going to be upside down on this. But you've got another 39 days that you can just sit around and wait for, the price to correct, possibly. Now, it could rip to 2 this time and then rip to 3. So I'm definitely not promising anything. I'm just saying this is an alternative strategy if you want to build more time. Some people call it time, building time to be right. With a week days to expiration like I like, you just win or lose very quickly. And so 45 days to expiration is when theta is at its highest, when it really starts to accelerate. And so you would look to roll this within 2 or 3 weeks, and then you would just roll it out to another 45 days, if that's a preferable strategy. But let me just go back out to Tesla. So if I was getting into Tesla from scratch today and I was running the wheel, I would just sell this one. 1% of this would be $18. So this is like 2.5% ROI for the week. Then boom, you get assigned, you own 100 shares. However much call away value you want to build into this. Oh God, I went out. Why the hell am I looking at? That was crazy. Okay, that's more accurate. I'm like, what in the hell's going on? I had picked like 2 years out in the future. Actually, I think I was looking at the leaps. So that's the other thing that I do with the profits. I'll either buy shares with the profits, or I'll just go way out and buy as cheap as leaps that I can afford, like deep out of the money leaps. That can be a little bit of protection against upside, sharp upside moves as well. But yeah, so this is way more accurate. So you're going to sell, I'll put here, 1% would be $1.80. So you could get like 1.5% or whatever at the money for 4 days. Again, these aren't quite accurate because we lost a day of premium. And then boom, you get assigned at some point, and then you can sell, you can collect 1% right here. You can sell the 190. You got about 2 to 3% call away value built in here. I'm not really that happy with the premium on Tesla, but it's the only other non-Bitcoin derivative asset that I truly believe in. So I think it's undervalued, and this is just going to go nuts when Tesla starts ramping up on Cybertruck, semis, their new 25K vehicle, robotaxis, cybercabs, whatever the hell you want to call them. They got Powerwall sales increasing. FSD is going to be a monthly printer. They're going to be selling subscriptions, all kinds of shit. So, to me, Tesla is the only other asset that I trade besides the mining stocks and MicroStrategy. So while I'm not like in love with the amount of premium you can get here, I love the asset. So I will probably be holding and trading Tesla for the next at least 10, 20 years. But the premium to be had in these mining stocks is just so much greater. I trade MicroStrategy everywhere I can afford it, and then with whatever kind of slivers of buying power I have left over, I trade, some of the mining stocks. So again, you could sell a put in RIOT right here. 1% of this is 10, so you can get 3% at the money. Do that every week until you get assigned. Now you own 100 shares. I sold the 12 for whatever. I think the price was, it was pretty similar to this. I baked like $1.50 call away into this, got paid, whatever. I think I got paid like $15 for this. I can look and see, but it doesn't really matter. Then you just keep selling the 12 strike or the 11.50 or the 12.50 or whatever you want until the price goes above that. Now you don't own shares anymore, and then you got to flip it back over here and you just sell below the share price again. HUT's the other one that I trade. If I was doing this today, just sell the 850, collect 3%. So you get assigned. I have 100 shares of this, and I sold the 9.5. That's about 2% ROI on premium here, with about a 70-cent call away value, which is like 10%. Yeah. So that's it. It kind of couldn't be any easier. Step one, if you don't own shares, sell a cash secured put under the share price until you get assigned. Step two, sell the covered call above the share price, preferably above your cost basis. If you sell below your cost basis, you run the risk of losing money, which can happen. This is the stock market. That's about it. You just rinse and repeat. And so if you're collecting 1% a week, 2% a week, 3% a week, whatever, that adds up. If you're collecting 1% a week minimum, that's 50% for the year. However, if the amount of premium you collected was enough for you to buy another 100 shares of HUT, which is the cheapest mining stock that I trade, if the premium that you collected added up to $800, $900, and you bought another 100 shares, well, now you don't just get the 1% for the week, because now you're going to sell another covered call on this if you buy the 100 shares with the premium, and then you're going to make another 1%. So you're making 1% plus 1% times 1%, and that's how compound interest is figured. And so in that scenario, instead of making 52% for the year, the formula is 1.01 raised to the exponent of 52 weeks a year, because that's how many weekly calls I can sell in a year. And now your yearly returns went from 52% to 67%. It gets insane if you collect 2% a week. On some of these mining stocks, it was pretty easy to get 2 to 3%. So if we go to 52, now it's 180%. It's 2.x times your money. If you collect 3% a week, it gets ridiculous. 52 weeks a year. Now it's 4.65x your money. And you can just see where that's going. I don't even want to do anything higher than that. But assuming your account is big enough to capture, to buy an extra 100 shares of something. I trade MicroStrategy. I collect, on 300 shares, if I collect $3,600, I can buy, 400 shares of HUT, and then I make another, $80 on that, right? And then I can take that $80 and I can buy 10 more shares, almost 10 more shares of HUT, 9 more shares of HUT. Or actually in Robinhood, I buy fractional shares of MicroStrategy. Where was I going with that? All right, so I made this chart. If you have a large account, or you grow your small account until it becomes a large account, and you're getting 1% a week, if you only have 100 shares, if you do have the small account, it's going to take you 100 weeks to get your second 100 shares, because you're only able to purchase 1 share a week. But now you have 200 shares, and if you get 1% a week on each, now you can buy 2 shares a week. Now it only takes half the time to get to your third 100 shares. It's going to take you 50 weeks. Then you're buying 3 shares a week. It only takes you 34 weeks to get to the next 100. Now you're buying 4 shares a week. It only takes you 25 weeks to get to the next 100. And collecting 1% a week, you need to get to a grand total of 10,000 shares to get to what I call reaching critical mass. If you're collecting 1% a week and you have 10,000 shares, that means you're able to buy 100 shares a week. Now, you don't have to wait more than 1 week to get 100 shares. You're going to buy an extra 100 shares this week. So another covered call, you're going to buy 100 shares the next week. So now you have 10,100 shares, 10,200 shares, 10,300 shares. And it's at this point when you get the compound interest effect. Until you get to here, you're basically making 1% a week or 52% ROI for the year, which is still nothing to sneeze at. But once you get here, you can make 67% a year, in theory. You're not promised this. The stock market can kick you in the balls or whatever. But also, this doesn't account for the price of your stock actually going up, because the value of your stock can go up, which can make you, then you can sell calls for more money as well. But yeah, so this is critical mass. Now, I did mock it up for, if you get something insane like 5% a week, and you get 5 shares a week, instead of it taking you 11 years to get to critical mass. But that's not putting any extra money into this account. Like if you just had 100 shares, you could, in 11 years, without putting an extra dime in the account, you could end up reaching critical mass with 10,000 shares. But at 5% a week, that's ungodly amount, premium, but it is possible on some stocks. It's only going to take you 80 weeks to get to critical mass, because you only need 2,000 shares to get 100 shares every week. But that's why I do it, and that's why I've been able to basically become work optional in 4 years. And the strategy is very simple, but as I described in my earlier post today, you got FOMO people shitting on covered calls, and you got the FUD people shitting on covered calls. Everybody's got their reasons, aka excuses, not to do this. But I do have to give the MicroStrategy folks a little their due. They might actually be right. It might actually be more advantageous to just sit on MicroStrategy and do nothing. Case in point, my IRA had 100 shares of MicroStrategy in it when it was worth $500 or $600. I no longer have 100 shares of MicroStrategy in my account, and if I did, it would be worth about twice as much as it is. So my IRA, instead of being worth like 120 grand, it's probably only worth like 60, 70 or whatever. Because my shares were called away at around that 1,400 strike price, and I probably had to pay 20 or 30 for that. Actually, no, that's not even close. I think those got called away back when it was under 1,000, when the price went up from 500 to 100,000. yeah, I think I ended up with like 60 or 70. Yeah. So anyway, selling covered calls on MicroStrategy is a whole lot more dangerous than anything else that I can think of in the stock market. There's nothing that's more volatile, and I fully expect it to remain this volatile for as long as Bitcoin continues to pump for this cycle, and maybe even longer, because MicroStrategy's got a lot of other things going for it. If you want to know all about all those things, you can follow the Quant Bros on YouTube, or you can find them on X as well, at RIQuant and at Punter Jeff. They've got a great YouTube series discussing MicroStrategy and all the things that MicroStrategy has going for it. So the valuations that could happen are pretty sick. So I do know that I'm playing with fire, selling covered calls on MicroStrategy, but this is what I do. So I got to keep doing it. I do try to keep some shares on the side to have unlimited upside, so I don't sell covered calls on 100% of my shares. And I also have purchased a deep out of the money leaps right here. This cost me $8,800, and this will afford me some upside protection if the price of MicroStrategy goes to the roof. This will appreciate fairly well. And I will continue to add to this position. So generally, I have 313 shares of MicroStrategy, and every week I'll buy a few shares. But now I may just start dollar cost averaging into some of these deep out of the money leaps. We'll see. All right, that was way longer than I intended to go on about this. It's a very simple strategy, so I probably could have said all of that with fewer words if I had only had more time. All right, I'll leave it there. Be good, y'all.